Boys, looky there. That there's a Rocky Mountain black bear. One of the few remaining of its kind. Isn't it beautiful? My God, it's coming right for us!
Hey, it wasn't coming right for us. It was just sitting there.
Shh, not so loud. Now that there's just a technicality.
What do you mean?
You see, boys, the Democrats have passed a lot of laws trying to stop us from hunting.
Democrats piss me off.
They say we can't shoot certain animals anymore unless they're posing an immediate threat. Therefore, before we shoot something, we have to say, it's coming right for us.
Wow, you're smart, Uncle Jimbo.
Jimbo, look.
Oh, it's a deer. Looks like about a 46 gauge, Ned. It's coming right for us!
Hey everybody, welcome to the Bricked Pit, the podcast you didn't know that you didn't need, hosted by three guys that have no business having a podcast other than it was given to them by the government the time they turned 40. That's life in the new America. So we like to talk about movies, television.
What I love about that joke about the government give us podcasts is like, since we don't have any listeners,
Right.
it doesn't matter how many times you use it, somebody's going to hear it for the first time.
That's right.
When they accidentally run across the podcast.
That's the great thing about this podcast is it's always the audience's first time. It's a new 10 people that listen every episode.
Yeah.
So you gotta those of you that actually do tune in and listen to us week after week for years now, I applaud you. I question your sanity, but thank you. It is appreciated. I'm Josh. With me, as always, is a man who is so ordinary that it acts as camouflage. Adam.
I am neither seen nor heard. That was the way I was raised.
The famed trophy hunter from Timbuktu, Jason.
You mispronounced that name, but I'm not going to correct you. This is a family-friendly show.
Jason. Oh, you meant the other one.
Yeah. I will have to say, though, I don't know what it is with the current generation. It sounds like an old man here, but
We are
anytime,
old men, so.
anytime I go to a restaurant now where we need a name, so we call out for your order, and I tell them Jason, and then I look at how they're written. Never is it spelt the way that I've spelt it. Like there's Y's and stuff in there. Like I
Jaiy.
yeah, it's just like.
Wait, is that not how you spell your name? I've been putting the credits that way for years.
It's just J dash and then a picture of a sun.
Yeah, like it's supposed to be.
Good Lord. Jason is an Anunnaki, so he writes in a combination of cuneiform and Sanskrit and hieroglyphics.
It's really not even his real name. It's just the way we pronounce it in our
That's the
language.
only part we can pronounce.
That's right.
He's from the 10th planet. Like suddenly we're in across the Rockies with Art Bell. We should just turn this into a fake Art Bell type show and
I'll be honest with you.
if we pivoted, that would be fine.
No, it would be no. I wasn't gonna say. I was just gonna say, just thinking about this abstractly. From where I am right now, having known Jason as long as I have, it would not be much for you to convince me that part was true. That
he's some kind of like alien overlord.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that would not.
Here's the frightening thing.
Now I have to kill you both
Yeah.
for knowing my secret.
The retribution that I'm going to get offline is
Yeah.
Jason's like the little haunted doll that, that tells me to do things. You can hear him? All right. He says I can't play today.
You're living in your own episode of Fight Club over here, and it's just it's really just been me and you the whole time.
Yeah, it'd be like Slap Fight Club.
Windmill Club.
Stop.
Not in the face. Not in the face.
I would be Napoleon Dynamite, and Tyler Durden would be Kip. It's like, Kip wasn't real this whole time.
And that, folks, is the longest introduction we've ever had.
and the most cohesive, honestly. It's
Too bad it wasn't on topic
or recorded.
So-
We haven't hit the record button.
I'm going to, lick my finger and hold it up to the wind and check the leaves and look for signs of tracks. Maybe pick up some fresh dung and hunt for the episode that we're going to talk about today. What about hunting movies?
And honestly, folks, we didn't have a topic today. Josh that was deliberately his list to do things today. And he just kind of walked into that topic.
I do find,
dung everywhere. Yes, we know.
yeah.
Lick your fingers and stick
Once
them
you
in the air.
have kids, that become suddenly bodily fluids become other people's bodily fluids become your business.
An unexpected hazard in your own home. It's
All right, so hunting in films. There's different ways you can approach this because, it is at one time was part of our survival when we were hunter gatherers, which reminded me of I had to take a environmental course to graduate college. And this guy showed us, this was in 2000, and he showed us this movie that started out, it was like a PBS show, and it started out showing Highlander 2 is what was going to happen if we didn't repair the ozone. And it talked about the year 2000. I was like, it is the year 2000. None of this has happened. But he was convinced that hunting gathering was the least impactful to the environment and thought we should go back to that. I was like, dude, you know how hot it is outside?
Yeah, we wouldn't definitely need university professors to
Right.
go back to that.
I don't think you've thought this through. So anyway, and then it's culturally, especially in America, it's still a thing. It can be quite controversial in some places, but where we grew up, it was just woven into the tapestry. I was never a hunter. I've only gone hunting twice.
you have them car keys every Wednesday morning when you have to commute in.
I once went hunting for feral pigs because they're a invasive species. So there's pretty much no regulation or limits to how many feral pigs you can eat. They're actually pretty good to eat. And the time I went, my buddy badgered me into going, and I agreed. And we went out in the Alabama deltas on a little P-row, and it was 20 degrees out. The hogs were not out because it was freezing. Only us.
The human hogs were out.
Yes, trolling around.
Which one of us is actually the superior being right now?
We saw an otter.
That was the highlight.
That was. And that wasn't even in the wild. We went to the aquarium afterwards. They didn't like those bringing the guns in, but
it was Mississippi, so they didn't really care that much.
You can get in almost anywhere. It's like carrying a ladder with you.
Adam, you can kind of say if you had this experience, and I don't know if Josh did or either, but growing up in Mississippi, I know we had for a semester we did hunter and gun safety.
Mm-hmm. It was offered, yeah. In high school, yeah.
And to the point that we actually went out to a gun range and shot 22s.
Yeah.
My wife grew up in Louisiana, and South Louisiana. She's younger than us. I don't know if this was post-Columbine or not, but they did rifle shooting in the basement of the school. They had a range. And thinking about that today is that's just insane. But in the 70s and stuff, and especially in the South, gun racks were a thing. When I was growing up, gun racks were a thing. People had gun racks in their car.
Yeah. I was still in middle school when they would close for the first day of deer season.
Mm-hmm.
Or they would, it wasn't closed, but it was an excused absence. I think that's the way it was. Like, not everybody went. Obviously.
Turned a blind eye.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
When hunting season started, if you were to go out into the student parking lot of the high school
Mm-hmm.
and start inspecting it, you would probably at 30
lots of guns,
to 45% of the vehicles had guns in them, shotguns or hunting rifles. And it was nothing like that. That was okay.
Yeah, I mean, and again, we will always sound like old people because we are, but I mean, it was literally a different world. I think it was at Pearl, Mississippi. I think was the first real big school, nationally televised kind of school shooting.
I was going to say
thing.
nationally, yes.
After that, it was a seismic shift. So, like, I'm not anti-hunting. I'm not super pro-hunting. I mean, I think that there are responsible hunters, and that, like, culling population of the deer is actually a good thing, because if they do overpopulate, they can get, like, wasting disease or starve. Like wildlife management is a legitimate thing, and sometimes that involves murder. Like most things that I advocate, murder falls somewhere in there.
Well, a lot of the dedicated hunters too are conservationists, so it's not just about hunting, but it's about taking care of the land. My uncle was a big hunter, and he's one of those people who stop on the side of the road and pick up garbage.
Yeah. People that tend to spend a lot of time in the woods tend to want to keep it pristine and wild, you know. There's often people that advocate for that kind of stuff that don't. It's like, well, do you go in the woods? Like, hell no, I don't.
You know what's in there?
My God, there's wild animals in there. But anyway, like in film, you know, it's, again, a great backdrop or narrative hook that instantly translates in our little lizard brains. You know, there's the primal instinct of survival. It's a metaphor for power. You know, taming nature is a motif in a lot of Westerns. So, like, hunting in film is not just it's not Ted Nugent and Duck Dynasty. Like there's an underpinning of the human experience in there that is typically framed in this narrative of the hunter.
And also a lot of, like, especially like 1930s and stuff like that, it was seen as a gentleman's sport.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times. So you do see that a lot in the comedies of the era to show that someone is upper crust, Marx Brothers movies and stuff like that. It was a character trait that they can kind of play off of the high class, and
also it, like, depends on the prey. So, like, in The Most Dangerous Game, you know, it's the most dangerous animal.
Come on, man!
Like,
don't be stealing my thunder.
It's this elitist thing. Well, we can get into it, but, you know, and then versus pig hunting, right? You know, and then there's like fox hunts, which are like more upper class kind of thing, and deer hunting is seen as more like blue collar style,
going on
hunting.
Safari.
Yeah, going on safari, yes, and that's a very easy code for a certain type of mentality, and it's interesting because like the hunter can be portrayed as like the noble figure or the villain,
right? And
their social strata typically is reflected by the prey that they select. How you like them apples?
My initial choice for movie on this was that Cheney biography. But that was really only a really small part of the movie, so I decided not to.
Every third episode is you and Cheney shooting the guy in the face. and the negligent discharge.
Two separate but closely related topics. Actually, so all kidding aside, my original choice for this was The Deer Hunter, which I hadn't seen in years, right? And the reason it didn't make the cut to talk about more extensively was twofold. One is I started rewatching it. You know, it's like 3 hours long for one, and I just didn't have it in me. I couldn't do it. It's a lot to get through. again, I think the name is a misnomer.
It's
You're not-
talking about a person, not the plot.
Right.
I had prepped for watching The Deer Hunter because I was like, I had planned a joke of like when you started talking about, say, how many horses were blown up with dynamite in this film, because the director went on to do Heaven's Gate,
Right.
and like I had all kinds of bits, and then you pulled the.
Yeah. But anyway, I didn't get through it enough, and I didn't have enough time to finish it to get to the.
Well, it's a heavy film, and that's and like around that time too is when like the hunting started to be used as a more
as a device, as
more
point.
social commentary and painted in a more negative light. I guess I would say. I don't know.
The other one, of course, was I figured this is the one I just thought Jason was going to gravitate toward was Deliverance because of all the obvious reasons, but
I'll have to watch it when I lived it.
That's right. I guess it's time we could tell this story, but he's the banjo kid. If for folks who didn't know, that was Jason's first foray into filmmaking. Was
I got to play with Ronnie Cox.
That's right,
and that was not a euphemism.
Well, it's funny when I was doing research on The Deer Hunter is I realized that the director also wrote Silent Running. I didn't know that. So, yeah. So I was like, man, this dude's like a superstar of the podcast. We've talked about almost all of his films before he destroyed his career.
I would talk about him more, but I'm waiting for this cloud to get into the right position.
That's right.
Before we can do that. It's going to be another 6 hours.
We need to rebuild this set. It's 4 feet over, too far over. The street's too small.
I think you're right. In the 80s especially, it shifted to code for blue collar. It was a way to say blue collar without necessarily saying it.
Yeah, you definitely in the 80s had the MTV, Wall Street cocaine culture.
Right.
That was definitely more urban.
They weren't hunting.
Yeah. Well, Weird Science, Chet, the older brother. It's like he missed out on the party because he was out hunting.
Red Dawn.
Yeah.
Well, that's the exception to the rule.
So I don't think that drinking the deer blood and putting it on your face, I think that was just a John Milius thing. I don't think
that's
that was
definitely a John Milius thing.
I have no doubt that he actually did that.
I do. I doubt John Milius has actually ever hunted.
Other than man. There's no doubt that John Milius did some Most Dangerous Game action.
With producers he didn't like.
On the set. You got about 5 minutes. Till what? Cross the line, Smokey.
Yeah, I do think you're right. In the 80s and the 90s, you see this push towards hunting being very, they're very simple, blue-collar type people. A representation of the concept of being old-fashioned and out of touch with modern day. And I think, they kind of become coded for that. I think there's been a slight swing back away from it, but not totally. Because I think, after the huge Jason Bourne and all that sort of kind of character type came in popularity and not only that, with this whole alpha male, I don't want to say the words, I know it'll trigger Adam. Such a snowflake. No, but yeah. That whole internet culture where you had
he's not a Sigma like us.
Where you had that whole weird stratification of masculinity.
Keep talking, silly boy.
So now I think you're right. I think that in certain circles it's encoded differently, but and it's read from both sides diametrically opposed, right? Because the internet macho man reads that one way, and the internet soy boy would read it, and I say that tongue in cheek, but it's depending on your
persuasion,
your worldview, you're going to look at that differently. So audience matters in these instances. I couldn't think of a whole lot of hunting style films that have been made recently.
Yeah. I agree. In the sense of what you're like, what I meant.
That is a motif or
like an original
plot driving.
Most of the ones that I could think of had elements that was part of the story, but that wasn't the story.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like a lot of it, the ones that I could come up with were ones we've already kind of dealt with in other films, like The Revenant and Jeremiah Johnson, which are kind of very closely related, right? But I wanted to stay away from those. But the art, like you were talking about, the Native American stereotype, like the hunter, Native American hunter, being an essential quality of some sort, like Glass to Mohicans or something, for that example. You know,
that's a good example. We should have done that.
Well, we've done that one in another movie or another. I think we're at the point. I know this will irk Jason's to no end, but I think we're at the point where we're just going to have to start talking about movies again in different contexts, because we'll have new takes.
Because we only watched like four, maybe 5 movies
ever. Right. I mean, it's time to just revisit. What do we got? We got. We
hadn't talked about Elf in a while.
Yeah, Snatch, Big Trouble in Little China.
Well, there are podcasts like dedicated to single films, so at least we're branched out from that, like 5.
Right. This is a quick aside. I had a friend who does listen to the podcast, allegedly.
Those are 2 untruths you told in one sentence.
One of us always lies, and one of us always tells the truth. And that's
the straw man I constructed in my mind of what someone who possibly listened to the podcast might sound like. Continue.
Well, now I've lost my train of thought. Oh, his suggestion was, because we all have very strong opinions about specific either actors or directors or whatever. As he said, we should do a series where we just focus on Keanu Reeves. We do 6 episodes just on Keanu Reeves movies, or 6 episodes on Tom Hanks movies, or John Milius movies, or whatever. And I said, Jason would never go for that. Like, he's got too many.
I would like to do 6 episodes on Stuart French.
Okay. Done.
Those other people are done to death.
Yes.
Who's done a Stuart French retrospective?
That's Raven Simone. The best, all of her works, everything from
the collected works.
The collected works of Raven.
So, what do we do for the other 5 episodes?
And we call it "Everybody Loves Raven Simone."
That's right.
Or for our '90s wrestling fans, what about a Raven?
Adam's laughing. He has no idea.
I know what wrestling is, to quote our good friend.
You said words. make mine laugh. All right, Adam. So you've been
since you've already
jawing a lot, so we're going to go to Jason.
Yeah.
Jason, what movie do you want to talk about today?
I want to talk about, it's an actual Netflix film, but it is from one of, I'm not going to say one of my favorite teams, but definitely a team that does a lot of eccentric stuff and is doing probably one of my favorite TV shows right now. And that is Danny McBride, Jody Hill. And that is the legacy of a Whitetail Deer Hunter.
Hi, I'm Buck Ferguson. Tonight's episode isn't just about killing whitetail deer. It's also about family.
Hey, Buck. I'll go get him. Make yourself at home.
Make myself at home.
How you doing, son?
Ready to go kill your first whitetail deer?
All right, Don, you ready to work now?
We're ready. We're rolling.
You know, Don, this will be the greatest video we've ever made.
Nailed it.
I can't believe you're on your first whitetail deer hunt.
I just hate it when places don't have Wi-Fi. Can't call Caroline.
Fathers teaching their sons to hunt is a rite of passage as old as time.
I'll always consider myself more of a Marriott guy.
Now, son, when you see your first whitetail deer, it's gonna look all cute and fluffy. We can honor the deer, but we can't love it.
This is boring. You know what I could go for? Turkey panini. Paninis are good.
Focus on the deer.
What deer?
Take my hand and let's go where
You know why I love these woods? Out here, there's nothing to disturb you.
Amen.
we get there. Release me and set me free.
And when you find a deer, everything just falls into place.
I can't believe this moment is here. Take the shot.
Caroline.
The spirit moves.
He doesn't take to hunt now. He may never.
The spirit moves.
I gotta say, this deer really isn't a priority for me.
I thought if you loved hunting, then there'd be a way that I could always be in your life. Why are you recording this, Don? This is part of the narrative.
I just figured it might make a good midpoint crisis or raise the stakes of the story.
Shut the camera off, Don. Trying to have a moment with my son, okay?
Mom and Greg said if I could call him Dad.
You called Greg Dad?
Yeah, but only like 5 times.
First time I met my girlfriend, she's like, I'm a certified mechanic and a registered nurse. And I'm like, oh yeah? Well, guess what? I got a busted truck and a heart condition.
You and me have done things the world is gonna remember.
Woo! Long way down, Buck.
I think you should probably cover most of this stuff from the other side of the bridge there.
You want me to cross the bridge first, so I can get coverage of you testing out the bridge before anybody crosses it because it's unsafe.
Exactly.
Don't worry, I got it.
Oh, Jesus.
The spirit moves inside.
Now, this is a movie that, if you look it up, I don't think it has very good reviews on it, but I do like it because it is, one, it's very Southern. Like, Danny McBride has a way of bringing in his South Carolina upbringing, and life, and not necessarily putting a pin on it, but definitely it's infused in his work.
It's both over and subtle with him. Like,
Yeah.
it oscillates because some of the things he'll say is very, very Southern, and some of those things is like some of the things he says they would go right over the head if you didn't grow up in the South.
Well, what I find intriguing about Danny McBride is like he comes across as somebody I identify with intensely and also not at all at the same time. Like he is both me as a nerd and my brother as a jock, like an amalgam in the same person. And so it
Someone you
kind of
hate
breaks
in real life, but also want to hang out with a little bit.
Yeah. So like a great example is in the Jared Hess film, Dan Verdeen. He has this monologue where he just starts going off on a tangent about Voltron. And it was an extemporaneous like thing. And it sounds like something that I would say, but then like when it comes to something like Eastbound and Down, which is great, but it like I identify less with that. But my brother who played baseball and football and all these sports, like he gets the deep cuts in that I miss. So he's like he's really intriguing. I just finished the Halloween trilogy for the first time. I'm late to the party that he and Daniel Green, I think. Green's the last name of the director. Halloween Ends, and Halloween Kills, or something in that order. They were really good, and he is executive producer and writer on those. And it's like he's got a great depth to him. But anyway, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, like I said, he and Jody Hill have worked. Really, their first film, which is an independent film that Adam McKay and Will Ferrell saw, and kind of that's how Danny McBride got pulled into the Hollywood scene. But their first film, The Fit-Fust Way, is it like this film, and I think like The Righteous Gemstones, which is a show that I absolutely adore. Like it is a fantastic TV show because it does this thing where there's a lot of overt satire. Like they're clearly making fun of this certain set of people, but there's also like a sentimentality involved in it as well, a very human aspect. And what I like is that he juxtaposes those to an extent. Like there will be a point that is in other films unearned sentimentality, and so he'll bring that, but he'll he'll subvert it by throwing in some comedy to deliberately disrupt that sentimentality.
Right. Like the Righteous Gemstones is interesting in the fact that it's like I said, they're objectively not good people, but you can't help but care and root for them, which is like, that is so hard to pull off. Yeah. Like it's funny because I used to watch TBN like for laughs. I'd watch like the purple hair lady and stuff, and like and Benny Hinn, and would just laugh because so like Rice Gemstone like hits that right on, but then at the same time, like I said, humanizes them. They're complicated people. They're complicated characters, even though it's a overt satire.
Yes,
it's really, really smart, funny show, and oddly sentimental.
Yeah, just out of nowhere. Anyway, this movie, The Legacy of a Whitetail Deer Hunter, Danny McBride's in it, but he's actually a supporting character. The main character is played by Josh Brolin, and he is Buck Ferguson. And he is a guy who has DVDs of him going on hunting escapades. Danny McBride plays his cameraman. This is one of those things, if you didn't grow up in the South, or if you haven't been even like tangentially introduced into this culture, like this is a thing that exists.
To our listeners in LA, yes.
There's a whole channel of this stuff. On some cable networks and DirecTV satellite.
And if you got the antenna.
That's right.
But so he's this guy, he does these videos, and so they're going out to do a video with his son, played by Montana Jordan, who I think was maybe like 13 at the time. He went on to do, was it the Young Sheldon?
Mm-hmm.
He plays Sheldon's older brother, which I'm going to surprise Adam. I hate Big Bang Theory, but I actually like Young Sheldon.
I don't really want to hear it from you. I don't need your like conciliatory commentary on this.
I'm just stating a fact here.
No, that's like Jason saying he hates TNG but loves Deep Space Nine. For our podcasters that do Star Trek podcasters, which is a significant, statistically significant number of our listeners.
That Venn diagram is just a circle. That's not.
If you host a Star Trek podcast, there's an 85% chance you're listening right now.
They're 2 out of 3 of our listeners, and that's total number. That's not like statistic. That's
which one of us?
2/3. It's 2 out of 3.
Right. Which one of us doesn't watch Star Trek?
That would be you.
Yeah. No, I'm a super fan.
No. Which one of us doesn't listen to the podcast?
Oh yeah, no, that'd be me. For sure. Yeah, I like Young Sheldon too. It's. I haven't seen any. When's that new show start? I know it's the spinoff of the spinoff, but
I just recently really started watching Young Sheldon. Like it showed up on reruns, so I'm enjoying it. It's got 3 things that Big Bang doesn't have. It's got subtlety,
mm-hmm.
It's got heart,
mm-hmm.
and Annie Potts.
Yeah.
Hold up now. At first, you had my curiosity. I'm a Potterite, as you may. Yeah. I'm in the Pot Society.
Any pots, I presume.
Our motto is "Any pots will do."
Young Sheldon is to Big Bang Theory as Andor is to like episode 1. It's kind of.
Well, hell, now I've got to watch Young Sheldon. That's a hell of an endorsement.
So anyway, Buck Ferguson is going to take out his son Jaden on his first hunt. But you find out very early on, like he's divorced from his wife, and she's already got another man in her life played by Scoot McNairy. I don't know if anyone knows who he is. I just like saying the name Scoot McNairy.
I'll pull a southernism out. Is that his Christian name?
Isn't that guy that they wanted to pardon in the Bush administration?
Yeah, he's very famous, part of the McNary acting family.
Okay.
Twins, the Poot and Toot McNary.
Is he the lesser or the greater?
How can you have a podcast and even ask that question? Get off this show.
Anyway, so it sets up a lot of the tropes of the divorced family, like the fact that the new man in her life is kind of taking over that father role that he's not there to fulfill anymore.
Recurrent theme in Danny McBride.
Yes,
stuff.
Very much, very much. And of course, so there's a competition between the two of them. Like the boyfriend gives the son a gun to take with him. That interferes with the fact that Josh Brolin was wanting to do this thing where he presents his son with the gun that his dad had given him for his first hunt, like that, this whole sentimentality thing. And this concept of hunting being a rite of passage into manhood. But at the same time, Danny McBride's there to film it. Like, it's all for show. Even though he's trying to push this sentimentality on it, he's doing it to sell DVDs. Like, he's wanting to record his son's first hunt.
Okay.
Like a social media influencer.
Yeah, exactly. And so there is a lot of the kind of the conflict between the son and father.
How about you, Dad? You got a girlfriend?
New Buck? The only tail your dad's chasing is whitetail.
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe you should start dating again.
No. I'm all right as is, Jaden. I'm doing just fine.
Just saying, probably be good for you. Seems like Mom is moving on. Her and Greg are even talking about getting married.
But they're talking about what?
He hadn't officially asked her yet, but she knows it's coming. They talk about it all the time.
It's ridiculous. The ink on the divorce barely even dry.
Well, I mean, it has been 2 years, Buck, though, you know.
What are you, human calendar? Mr. Trapper Keeper? I know how long it's been. God. Shit, I hate selfish people.
I'll give it to him, though. Greg told me some of the ideas he had for when he was going to propose. Man, that dude has a great imagination. He was talking about all these crazy things like skydiving and stuff. Where'd he go?
I'm gonna take a leap.
You know, of course, the son has his cell phone with him, so that's all he really wants to do is talk to his girlfriend on the cell phone and, do little TikToks and all that kind of stuff. And it's aggravating Josh Brolin's character, Buck Ferguson. Another funny name to say. I would really love to hear Norm Macdonald as Burt Reynolds say it.
And ask what kind of car he drove.
So there's a lot going on. Like the son's having a problem because he's been held back a year. So he's still in elementary school while all of his friends have moved on to middle school. So that's kind of like hit his confidence and everything like that. So he feels like he's stupid. And so there's a lot of this attempt for the two of them to kind of emotionally bond, but unfortunately, a lot of it is being manufactured on Josh Brolin's end, for the camera. And Danny McBride is there playing your typical Danny McBride character. Like, there's a general bit of like lewdness, and that is as part of his character, and he's kind of like introducing that to Jaden, the young boy, and of course that makes Josh Brolin's Buck Ferguson angry because it's like, no, he's a kid. You don't need to show him the pictures of your girlfriend, getting a train run on her by a bunch of guys. That's there in the movie. So there's this big conflict that happens between them. Danny McBride's character winds up leaving at one point because he's angry. But there's this, they're following this buck that they see. He calls it, it's an atypical, it's larger than normal and everything. So they're hunting that. And they finally get to the point where the kid can get to shoot it. And the kid's just like looking down the barrel of the gun. And he's like pausing. He's not taking the shot. And Josh Brolin's buck just like, take the shot, and he just wound up shooting, and he hits Danny McBride on the other side because he came back to get that. So now they have to get him back out because they're in the middle of the woods and everything. And so that's really where the bonding and everything happens. And this is why, like I said, I love Danny McBride, is because they're having like this bonding moment when they're talking to everything. And Danny McBride is down there, like, I'm bleeding. It's like, what's going on down there? I'm bleeding. And there's this great scene where they're kind of going down the river, and the son brought his acoustic guitar, and he's playing this song that he's written. And it's essentially about him being kind of like a reflection of his father, because he's talking about when he looks in the mirror, he sees his father and all that kind of stuff. But it's obviously a song written by a 10-year-old too. And there's this great bit where he's playing that song, and then you hear just like something like tapping, and it's because they're rolling down the river and just a tree branch hitting the guitar. Like it's this, like it's one of those great things where you have this unearned sentimentality. And like I said, they throw in like some real world occurrence just to kind of break it down and show you that life doesn't happen that way. It's silly and it's kind of overt, but it's if you like Danny McBride, you're gonna like Legacy of a Whitetail Deer Hunter, because it's essentially a boiling down of all the Danny McBride isms across everything from Fitfoot's Way to Eastbound and Down, Vice Principles, and Righteous Gemstones.
So how would you say that the hunting motif is used other than the plot point to get them out? Is it thematically?
It is definitely about rite of passage, like being something that a father passes on to his son, but also a little bit about, I would have to say, becoming kind of into your own, because there are points, like I said, the kid doesn't feel that he's smart because he's been held back a lot, but there are moments where he's allowed to shine, and he actually like comes up with the solutions to everything. In the end, the kid gets to ride out the 4-wheeler out with Danny McBride on it to get help because his father trusts it. Because earlier on they had 2 4-wheelers, but the kid got up early one day and got on one of them and just like playing around with it and crashed it. So the father trusts him then at the end for this big responsibility of saving Danny McBride because he's bleeding. Yes, I'm bleeding down here.
So there is the coming into manhood, but also like earning the respect of the father kind of aspect to it as well. That's cool. That's very Danny McBride.
Yes, like I said, he has that weird mixture of sentimentality and just a complete deconstruction of it. And
he does stupid smarter than most.
Yes,
and that that's the area I live and thrive in, and that's a difficult thing to do stupid smartly. It's like when people try to make films that are bad on purpose, or like that's a difficult thing to do. Like when you're competent and trying to, like, Black Dynamite is a marvel.
Yes, because it's an understanding of why those things work and don't work, and that you can't manufacture a film that's so bad that it's good,
unless you do. Yeah. But there's a weird point where like you become such a master of the craft that you can fake not being good at it, and he can do that with intelligence because he's obviously a smart guy.
Yeah,
and in his dumbness, in his characters, and a lot of his writing, it's incredibly clever.
Well, it's so entrenched, like I said, in that Southern mentality and culture and everything. There's a lot of things we do in the South simply because it's tradition or the way it's always been done. Not always the best or smartest thing to do, but
just the way it's always been done.
Yeah, but like I said, he does that tightrope act of balancing those things just almost flawlessly. Like I said, this only has, I think, maybe a 35% Rotten Tomatoes. I don't think those people that say that are people who kind of get it and understand, like Danny McBride. I think if you're a Danny McBride fan, you'll get it and you'll love it. It's
Well, in some films, they honestly, they have a niche audience. John Waters, for example. Like if you're a John Waters fan and that's in your kind of wedge, then there's nothing better. But if you're outside of that, it's just you're not going to have a good.
Is this?
Yeah, you're not going to have a good time.
Not at all.
You're going to have an exceptionally bad time if you don't appreciate John Waters watching any John Waters film.
Yeah,
even his tame ones like Crybaby or whatever.
And yes, that is a tame John Waters film for those people wondering.
Jesus, yes. That's like commercially viable John Waters. Pink Flamingos is like a rite of passage for film buffs. There's certain like gauntlets you have to run, and you'll either like dig it or not, but you have to experience it to know if you dig it or not, and I'm not going to knock John Waters at all, even though it is not of my taste public, but he fulfills a need and he does what he does well. God help us all, but he does. But the same can be said for like Jared Hess and a lot of these kind of like
niche
indie auteurs, like you're either in the group or not, and if you're not, I mean, the movie's not made for you, so you're gonna have a bad time. Doesn't mean, I hate to say it's not a bad movie. Pink Flamingos is distasteful, but that was the intent.
Yes.
It's not he's like, oh man, I was trying to do Swan Lake and this is what came out. Like, I don't know how we ended up here, but we are. So moving on. Adam.
Yo.
You like gladiator movies?
So you've already kind of alluded to this, but so the movie that I picked was The Most Dangerous Game, which is an oft repeated movie, but I'm looking at the original, the 1932, the OG. So it comes from a short story in 1924, and this is the first film adaptation of that short story.
Anybody around? Our yacht just sunk with all hands.
Welcome to my poor fortress. Here on my island, I have invented a new sensation.
He sleeps all day and hunts all night.
Conserve was so interesting I didn't realize the danger.
But what do you hunt here?
I hunt the most dangerous game.
The most dangerous game?
You killed my brother!
Why, you raving maniac!
So that's your most dangerous game. You take half-drowned men from ships you've wrecked and drive them out to be hunted.
I give them hunting clothes, a woodsman's knife, and a full day's start. Say you will hunt with me.
Hunt men? What do you think I am?
And probably the best.
This was pre-code. This was in the era that early talkie movies.
Like a decade into the...
Yeah. And so there's I want to talk
really even a decade. This is like
1932. Yeah. So and the reason I mentioned the reason I put that in context is because there's an interesting article that's a long form article about this movie in American Cinematographer. Mm-hmm. And one of the points they made, which was the reason this movie was so successful is because it was, by this stage in film, people were tired of the overly talkies. Too much talking, not enough moving. And so this was kind of seen as like a like a form breaker for that, I guess. There's a lot of really fascinating sort of film history about this that has to do with like RKO Studios, which was the production studio for it. It was going to be a massive, like huge budget blockbuster was the concept. So in nominal terms, I didn't inflation adjust this, but in nominal terms, it was $400,000 budget in 1932.
Damn.
Yeah, and they got to cracking on that, and then RKO was like, actually, we're going to give you $232,677. So,
we just saw the dailies.
Yeah, and then it dropped down to $219,869, which is the actual number they said they could not spend a penny over, which is funny. But so they had already started like,
well, back then a penny could get you a cameo with Buster Keaton. So.
So they started with this sort of giant budget, and it was going to be this like epic film. And that matters in a couple ways. One is that the early beginning of the movie is it starts out on a yacht, on a luxury yacht, coming back from wherever. And it's coming around the tip of South America or somewhere in that general vicinity. And in the original sort of screenplay, this yacht stuff was going to be a bigger piece. They'd cast 9 additional cast members already cast that were going to be part of this yacht conversation. And it's setting up the premise for the film, which is one of the men on the boat is a wealthy, to our earlier point, he's a wealthy American hunter who travels all over the world to hunt big game for trophy sport.
His name is Elmore Fudd, Rick.
As the ship's coming around this shoal, I guess, there are these markers in the ocean, these lit buoys that are supposed to show how, like, the correct channel for safety. But the captain of the ship's like, this just does not look right. This is something's off. And so he has very strong objections, which this, again, I will say this. As I was watching this with the sort of jaded cynicism of my life, everything in this movie is a brick pit. From the opening scene to the end, I'm like, this is all brick pits. Like, captain of ship's going to make the decision where the boat goes, not some rich guy. Like, he's not.
Oh, you don't live in the real world. If Jeff Bezos says you head for those buoys, you head for those buoys.
Well, that's what happened. Jeff Bezos, the owner of the yacht, said, I don't give a damn. We're not taking the long way around.
Look, I'm not saying that Jeff Bezos hunts humans for sport, but I'm also not saying that.
Remember, it's not libel if you say allegedly. So
and 4chan proposes that.
So
it's not for sport.
Allegedly.
He's doing it to cull the population to keep them healthy.
Yeah, that's
he and Bill Gates.
Yeah, jeez.
Just never accept barbecue at the Bezos. That's all I'm saying.
Allegedly.
Because it's human. It's because he's not from the South and he doesn't know how to barbecue. Some dry rub bull crap.
Would you soak this in vinegar for 17 hours? It tastes terrible. What are you doing here, man? The wealthy billionaire whatever's like, no, we will not take the long way. You will go through those. And sure enough, it hits the reef. This article points out that this is a really good early example of, oh crap, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a montage. Sorry. It's a very early example of a montage in film because they were going to do like a 9-minute shipwreck and then they had no money. So they did 25 single shots instead, which is, it's just those little tidbits are fascinating to me. But the main character's name, or one of the main characters' name, is Bob. He's the hunter. Bob Rainsford was on the yacht. He's our protagonist. He is the sole survivor of the shipwreck. As soon as the boat hits the reef, the sharks kill all the passengers and everybody dies except for Bob, who swims to this nearby island. There's a castle on the island, this massive, like Frankenstein-esque looking castle. He makes his way. Then there's an interesting thing about the score, the music. A hunting horn is the continuous motif throughout the movie. At the beginning, the opening sequence is his hand knocking on that door of the castle, and you hear the undercurrents of the hunting horn in the background, and it just continues throughout, which I thought was really neat. But so he makes his way ashore, and he gets inside, and then brick pit number 2, the count of the castle, who is our bad guy named Zaroff. He's a Russian, and he's brought these 3 goons from the mountains of Eastern Europe with him who speak no English and are menacing and bizarre. They're his Igors, essentially. Rainsford's immediately spooked by one of these guys before the Count comes down. Oh, please don't be scared of my servant here. He's just, whatever. And Rainsford immediately is like, boy, I sure am glad to be out of that water. Like, yeah, a bunch of people died, but that happens, just like he's the good guy and he's like disregard for humanity immediately.
He's also a rich hunter.
Fair.
So.
Yeah. I guess that is how Bezos would act, wouldn't it?
See, if you reframe this as this is the story of Bezos, then
allegedly.
Yes,
Anyway.
because it's actually about him from a 1924 story.
He's a time traveler. It's been alive that long. Anyway, so the Count takes him up, here's your room, get dressed, whatever. So he's coming back down. He goes, I know you're tired, but I thought you might want to meet our other guests. And if you could, I'm sure. And he says this throwaway line, which it made me laugh really hard, which was that you've endured so much with the tragedy and the loss of your crew, but for the woman's sake, pretend to be otherwise. And then that was like, that's the explanation for everything that follows.
How chivalrous.
So he gets downstairs. There's a woman and her brother who are survivors from a separate shipwreck that has occurred recently.
This guy's just collecting shipwrecks?
Yes, that is in fact the plot. And and her brother's a drunk, and he's just a sloppy drunk or whatever, and he's abusing the Count's courtesy or whatever. And so they tell him this story.
I like this guy.
They tell him the story of how like they shipwrecked, and it's been, I think she says it's been like a week or two, but the boat launch from the castle's broken and it's going to be a while before they can fix it, so they can't get help and whatever. Long story short, so the whole movie takes place over the course of 2 days. This is the second bit.
This explanation takes its course over 2 days.
I'm trying to pull a Jason here and give a thorough. It should be mentioned that the entire movie is only 62 minutes long. So,
I'm going to give you a minute by minute. Play by play.
Shot.
Oh, watch this. If you're watching along, you would have saw that. It was awesome.
Anyway, so what happens next is they all go to bed. They allude to the fact that there's a trophy room in the basement that nobody's allowed to see. The drunk stays behind. The Count's like, hey, you want to see the trophy room? Drunk's like, yeah. So then it's scene cut. Those sisters waking up Rainsford. She's like, it's been 3 hours. So this is important because this is a brick paper. He said 3 hours of sleep. He's been on a ship. He's been shipwrecked. He was up all day. It was already late. He said 3 hours of sleep. She wakes him up.
How do you know he was up all day and not sleeping on that ship?
Okay.
Did you watch him the whole time?
I did. I was there. I was part of the film. That's why I have such intimate knowledge of this movie.
He's reading from his journal that he wrote.
That's right.
This guy will not go to sleep.
So off they go to investigate. They go down to the trophy room, and sure enough, oh God, the trophies are human heads on the wall.
Sonic Green is people.
While they're there, the Count brings in the dead body of the brother. She screams, oh my God, what have you done? They capture her. They capture Bob. They take her away. He says, yes, you're right. The Count is a world famous hunter as well and has hunted every living creature on the planet, and that nothing has ever challenged him. And so the most dangerous game is hunting man.
Come, my dear Rainsford. I don't want to treat you like my other guests. You and I, we are hunters.
So that's your most dangerous game.
Yes, my dear fellow, I intended to tell you last night, but you know Miss Trowbridge.
You hunted him like an animal.
Yeah, I know what you think, but you are wrong. He was sober and fit for sport when I sent him out. An hour or two strapped up in here, lost him to his senses.
You raving maniac.
Yes. I'll take it off. When we finish, the stupid fellow tried to escape through the swamps of Fog Hollow. You see, when I first began stocking my island, many of my guests thought I was joking. So I established this trophy room. I always bring them here before the hunt. An hour with my trophies, and they usually do their best to keep away from me.
Where do you get these poor devils?
Providence provided my island with dangerous reefs.
But there are light buoys to mark the safe channel.
They do not always mark it.
You shifted them.
Precisely right. Too bad your yacht should have suffered. But at least it brought us together.
You take half-drowned men from ships you've wrecked and drive them out to be hunted.
I give them every consideration. Good food, exercise, everything to get them in splendid shape.
To be shot down in cold blood.
Oh, no. Oh, I admit with this annoying fellow. But usually I give them hunting clothes, a woodsman's knife, and a full day's start. Why, I even wait until midnight to give them the full advantage of the dark. And if one eludes me only till sunrise, he wins the game.
Suppose he refuses to be hunted.
Ivan is such an artist with these. Invariably, Mr. Rainsford, invariably they choose to hunt.
And when they win?
To date, I have not lost.
Now, to me, the most dangerous game would be hunting man, where you are running and he has the gun and you've got it, whatever, that would put the odds in his favor. That'd be, and I think a lot of adaptations in the future have kind of evened the playing field a bit on that. Like
that's not called hunting.
That's called running. It's called
right. The hunter always has an advantage because deers aren't. Man, they should arm the bears. So he didn't hunt and be fair.
So he gives Rainsford. He takes it on this island, right? So he gives Rainsford. He takes him out. It's 4 a.m. now. Sun's up.
Sun's out. Guns out.
He says, "I'm going to give you this hunting knife, and I'm going to give you until midnight to acquaint yourself with the island, and then I'm coming for you. And, oh, by the way, the girl's going with you, basically." So they create these traps that one's a log deadfall, one's a, like, leaves over a giant pit kind of thing.
Another, it's a Ponzi scheme.
Right.
Most dangerous hunt is Bernie Madoff.
And the traps fell, and the hunter, Zaroff is coming through the woods. So another little tidbit is this is the same set, the jungle set, as what they filmed King Kong in, the 1932 King Kong. So it's all the same jungle scenes. They hide in this cave, and he sees them, so he goes and gets his rifle, and he's coming back. So the whole thing is like he sets them up by saying there's this swamp called the Foggy Hollow. It's always foggy, and if you go in there, you'll never get out. I'll find you, and blah blah blah. That's where they all go. They think they can hide from me there, but I always get them. So of course they end up there. So he releases the hounds, which are these like 15 or 20 Great Danes.
That's the Mr. Burns play.
Yes. He's like, I'm even in the playing field since I can't see you, whatever. A note in the article is like, all these hounds were specially trained for this chase scene, right? And one of the henchmen was the trainer. He had to be close to the dogs. So they cast him as one of the henchmen. And despite this, one of them basically mauled both him and the main actor during the filming.
They died on screen.
Yes. The bit is that if he survives until dawn, that the bad guy will let them both go. As the sun is coming up, the dogs attack Rainsford, and he falls over the cliff, taking the dog with him, like over this waterfall, right? The undercurrent of this, which is fascinating because it is pre-code, was the Zaroff keeps saying that the only time you can, basically, I'm paraphrasing, but it's pretty close to this exact phrase. The only time you can make love to a woman is after a hunt. That's when your blood's the hottest. And so then he grabs the woman. And he goes, "It's after the hunt," and and that's the the implication.
The implication, yeah.
So he's dragging her back to the castle, and they get back there, and then dramatically, Rainsford opens the door, and he's alive, and they scuffle in the hall there and get into a big fight, and he stabs Zaroff with one of his own arrows, and then shoots the henchman, and they're escaping down the boat. As they're doing that, Zaroff crawls to the window with his bow and is trying to shoot, but Kit doesn't have the strength and falls out of the window into the pit where his dogs live. And that's the movie.
And the dogs say, "It's after the hunt."
The blood is hottest.
It's the implication.
Super short, right? I mean, it's an easy movie to watch, and historically fascinating. Mm-hmm. That just the way they made it and everything.
Well, and that story, it feels very Hitchcockian.
Yeah.
Like when I think of the story, because we read it in school, it's kind of, to me, it evokes the feeling like that and The Lottery are like middle school mind blowers, because like you're like, yeah. Oh, what's the most dangerous? My God, it's man. Yeah. And then like the lottery, it's like, oh, you don't want to win the lottery. What a twist! Oh! Public school in Mississippi was full of that stuff. They made us watch The Sixth Sense over and over again.
It's a book about burning books. Oh my God! Wait, the pigs are communists? Holy cow! When will the
this isn't just an ordinary talking animal book. This means something.
I never knew I could learn so much in school.
Lenny, don't look at the rabbits.
It's probably the last time I'll be able to tell this story. We have a pet rabbit. My daughter got it about 3 years ago, and the rabbit's name is Winnie. And that's and an
ironic twist.
And I love it because I named it. I was like, you can get whatever you want, but I get to name the rabbit. She's like, okay. And I was like, its name's Winnie, like without hesitation. She's like, why? I was like, I got a book you should read.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, it really is a good short story, yeah. And it's been adapted several times. Like there's the Ice-T version,
yeah,
which is exactly what you would expect.
Surviving the game.
Yeah, they just took out words out of the title. And then there's the John Leguizamo. The Pest is basically the game if you were trying to kill John Leguizamo. I think that was a documentary.
That movie almost ended a friendship.
I'm sure it ended many a friendship. Somebody made you go see that film?
No, somebody recommended, oh, this is a great movie. After I recommended like Train Spotting. After that, it's like, we're not talking movies anymore.
That's not an equal exchange.
No.
And I'm a John Leguizamo fan. Like I like his stand up. I like most of his movies.
He's a good actor. I mean, yeah,
he's a great actor. And but like his one man show they did on HBO where he
talks about his life.
Yeah, and he kind of embodies all of his different family. It's amazing. He's just he's super talented. That being said, The Pest is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life.
Yes.
Oh my God. And you're just kill this dude.
It's like, yeah, he's not only annoying, but he's somewhat racist too. Why don't we?
So there's also
most people took the wrong message from that. They walked out of the movie going man, we should probably kill John Tickle.
That's the right thing to do, I believe.
The morally correct thing to do in this situation is to stop that man from making other movies.
So there's also the Liam Hemsworth TV adaptation, which was 2 seasons.
Yeah.
I saw some of it. It was okay. I didn't watch the whole thing. It wasn't enough to make me sit down and watch all however many episodes of it. 27 episodes.
I think other than the original film, if it was done as a Alfred Hitchcock Presents 45-minute episode would have been good. Yeah, plenty. I'm hunting man. We're so smart. Yeah, so the motif being that man is the apex predator. What happens when that's flipped on its end? The only way to do that is to have another apex predator go after him. So yeah, hunting is very, in that film is framed as the personification of masculinity and thus rightness, I guess.
Right.
But then it kind of turns it on the end because it's the guy hunting humans is the bad guy. It's what happens when what's toxic masculinity look like? You hunt other people.
1930s style.
Yeah. Andrew Tate watches that movie and identifies with the wrong guy.
He identifies with the dog.
If you didn't want to be hunted, then why did you drive between the buoys? That's really.
I mean, I call that consent.
You had free will. Nobody made you go between those buoys.
Fair point. So let's talk about one more film before we wrap it up. And I had a hard time thinking about, like you said, we've covered films where hunting is a motif or plot point, even a simple plan and things like that. Hunting kind of plays into everything that's going on. I thought about the deer hunter stuff and I was just like you. I was like, I can't. I don't have the emotional fortitude at the moment to like.
I just forgot how much it was. Like I watched. I got to the war scenes. I got to the war, which is the great where it picks up speed. I watched all the wedding crap and all the bar scenes and all the singing and the hunting, the one actual hunting scene in the show. And this was over the course of like a week, watching like a 40-minute block at a time. And I was like, bro, I can't do this. And then I was like, wait, isn't The Most Dangerous Game like super short? 62 minutes? Sold. I'll take it.
Well, I was like, I rewatched Magnolia for the first time in like 10 years this year for the podcast. It's like, I'm emotionally drained enough. I'm not.
And it's worth mentioning for people who don't know, The Deer Hunter is an acclaimed film. It won the Oscars. Mm-hmm. It's got Robert De Niro in it and Christopher Walken before he turns into Christopher Walken, like super young. It's got Fredo from Godfather. I can't remember his real name.
John Fredo.
Yeah, it ain't that. But it was like his last role before he died, I think.
Well, yeah, if you have not seen it, you should watch it. But but it is not. It's a heavy lift.
Yeah,
it is worth it. It's funny. It's like sometimes like.
It's one of those, after you watch it, you're like, okay, I've watched it. That's it.
Don't need to do that. And I watched it probably 20 years ago now, and that's that was probably too recent.
It's like There Will Be Blood. Like I watched There Will Be Blood and No Country for Old Men.
Yeah,
my reaction to both was the same. I was like, that is the greatest movie I'll never watch again. Like I just
what's that one with Leonardo DiCaprio and the 5 Points and
Gangs of New York.
That's another one for me. That's the same.
I watched that like 4 or 5 times. I love that.
Yeah, that's your bedtime story. You just put that on every night to go to sleep too.
I make my kids watch it. Like, don't let Bill the Butcher get you.
Yeah. I think honestly, if we had watched, like, if we were three of us sitting and watching that movie, The Deer Hunter, together, watching it with like.
If we could cuddle while we're watching it and emotionally support each other, yeah.
But sitting by yourself at 2 a.m. trying to slog through that, that's not great times.
No, and that's the thing. Like sometimes art is uncomfortable, and that is a good thing. Mm-hmm. It's okay not to be in the mood for that, because there are times when like I want to listen to Brick from Ben Folds Fives, but 90% of the time I don't, because it's a freaking bummer. Like, how did that become like a top 40 hit? What's wrong with you, America? How could that ever happen? Did you listen to that song?
They did not.
They did not.
That was the sign.
I could beat it. I gave it 10. I could dance to it.
That was the first sign of the impending apocalypse that we are now experiencing.
And I say that because I was listening to Ben Folds this week and going, man, this guy can bum you out. He's like audio deer hunter.
But on a lighter note, what movie did you watch?
So I was like, I'll be a little cheeky. I want to watch 1997's Mousehunt.
The Smuntz brothers have inherited their father's old house.
Sorry, Pop. I'm sorry.
Fixing it up could bring them a fortune.
We can make $700,000-800,000 easy.
Man, smart.
Our future is staring us in the face, and all we have to do is grab it, baste it, and scarf it down.
There's just one small problem.
Hello. Hello.
DreamWorks Pictures proudly presents Nathan Lane.
We need a cat. I'm talking one mean pussy.
Lee Evans. And Christopher Walken as Caesar the Exterminator.
It's just a mouse. I don't think we'll be seeing any more of that. If he snaps one of these babies, one of them has to nab him.
Mousehunt.
The first directorial outing of Gore Verbinski.
The Ring.
Who? Huh?
Didn't he do The Ring?
He did. He also did Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh.
So Mousehunt is 1997, Gore Verbinski. It stars Nathan Lane, Lee Evans, Vicki Lewis, who you may know from News Radio. I'm a fan.
Yeah. It also has Maury Chaikin in it, who, as a quick diversion, is the person who plays Nero Wolfe on the reboot, the A&E reboot, which we talked about before as one of my favorite shows of all time. So,
and we'll get into some of the cameos.
And Christopher Walken again.
Yeah, well, thank you for stealing the thunder.
What does that feel like?
Good, I liked it. So, Mousehunt it was a dying genre at the time, and there may be, like, other than like the Three Stooges film from the 2000s, I don't think that there's been a film like this, which is a live action cartoon, kind of very slapsticky. It's very much a like Abbott and Costello or Marx Brothers type film, very family friendly. Like, I absolutely love this film. The studio hated it because, like, what the studio asked for was a Home Alone ripoff of The Mouse. They get this very weirdly dark movie. They're like, I don't know, wait, what? And it's beautifully shot. Everyone is given time to do, like, really physical comedy on their own. Like, each performer has moments. Like, there's a moment where Nathan Lane is trying to meet these people that he's trying to sell this dilapidated string factory that their father gave to them in his will to because they're all hard up for money, and he goes chasing his hat around after waving his tie at these women across the way, and it's very like Buster Keaton-esque. Mm-hmm. So the story revolves around the uncle and Dr. Finkelstein. I can't remember the character's name, but he, you recognize his voice. He plays their father. He dies. He owns a string factory. The film, it works so well because it's done in like an intentionally, strangely timeless era. Like everyone's driving around in like 1930s era vehicles, but at times you see that there's color television. Mm. They have an answering machine, but the answering machine's like a reel-to-reel that looks like maybe from the 60s. So like there's like this really like hodgepodge of different...
They're living in a Victorian house.
Eras. Yeah, it's very movie. I mean, but
the color palette and everything, yes, is very much something that you're watching a movie. Like it's not trying to mimic reality.
It's a world that exists,
and because of the ambiguity of it, it really makes itself timeless. So Nathan Lane is like chef at this posh restaurant, and it starts out in the mayor, who's like the eve of his reelection. He's this big fat guy, and he brings in his wife and kids. The kids are dressed alike, and like all the press is there. Their father had just died, and all he got from him was like a box of cigars that's in the kitchen. This big hissing cockroach crawls out. The mayor ends up biting half of the cockroach, and like the kids find half the cockroach. They're like, it's a cockroach, but it's only half of it. So the mayor like spews up the head of this giant cockroach that starts like running around. It's like really gross and hilarious at the same time. And the mayor ends up dying, so he loses everything. The brother refuses to sell the string factory because he promised his dad on his deathbed he wouldn't sell the string factory, even though he hadn't been paying the mortgage on it. It was just a failing business, so his wife leaves him. But the dad also left them this house, this giant Victorian house that's just dilapidated. They go in there because they both have no place to go, and they hear this noise, and they're investigating, and they find the blueprints, and they find out that it's a celebrated architect's lost house, like before he went to the nut house. They do their research, and this guy's like, he said, the last time one of these houses went on sale, it went for $6,000, and it was, that was like years ago, and it wasn't the lost house. And they're thinking $600,000, and they later figure out it's $6 million. They get the idea that they're going to patch the place up, auction it, make several $1 million, and live high on the hog. Fortunately, a little mouse lives there. He is the Jerry to their Tom that sees them as interlopers in his home. The rest of the movie is them trying to exterminate said mouse. Lots of practical effects, very funny dialogue. And again, some of the references, like there's several references to Nathan Lane being in Lion King. This is post Lion King.
Oh, right.
That are really funny. He's like, I know another guy that had a house with a mouse in it. Like this little, and then like they meet at the auction. There's all these people, and there's like this guy like in African garb, and he goes Hakuna Matata to like the guy. Like, it was DreamWorks picture. It does so well. Nathan Lane, I think, is probably the best person because this is like this is a Tom and Jerry kind of story, right? But you have, because the mouse can't really be the protagonist, though he does have a bit of a character arc himself. In order for the film to work, you have to be on board with these two guys being tortured and down on their luck. So they got to be kind of like losers.
Right.
But you also have to kind of like them too.
Right.
And like that's like where Nathan Lane shines, because he can be the most obnoxious person in the room that you're still enamored by. Like that's just where he just breathes in that area, and he does so well in this.
And there's also Lee Evans, who plays his brother, who's also a very, very good, I think, a really good supporting actor.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they play very well off each other.
Oh yeah, and just the physical comedy is amazing. So, but eventually, like to get to your point, they hire a exterminator, and is played by Christopher Walken, and he is not yet to the I'm Christopher Walken, but he plays it so seriously that he almost steals the entire movie. He's in it for like maybe 8 minutes. So they leave, and so the movie just kind of like stops narratively and says, okay, here's a short about Christopher Walken versus this mouse. He's like carrying a tape recorder and he starts like talking. He's like, oh yeah, that's asbestos in the ceiling. And they're like whispering to each other. He didn't want the mouse to hear. Like Nathan Lane's like, oh yeah, the mouse is going to, it's really amazing. And he ends up, going nuts because the mouse best him. Culminates with the house crashing down around them during the bidding war. They lose everything. They end up back at the factory. They go to sleep and they wake up. And the mouse that they thought they had killed had put some cheese into their string making machine. And the sets are just amazing. These huge, like Rube Goldberg contraptions. Like it's just like in hindsight, like we would say, oh, that's old school movie making. It was just movie making then. But we just don't do it that way anymore.
So Ebert didn't like this movie because of what you said earlier, which is
balls of string cheese.
Sorry, I didn't interrupt you. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I cut you off there. And that he didn't like it because he said that it's hard to figure out who the protagonist is and who the enemy is. Like the direct quote was, a comedy that hasn't assigned sympathy to some characters and made others hateful can't expect to get many laughs. I agree with you on this one. I usually agree with Ebert almost always, but Siskel took the other side, as you'd expect, and said, this is a good movie, right? This is funny. It's funny. Just get over it. Yeah. But I have heard this objection from other people before, is like, who am I rooting for here? The mouse, the guys, what's going on? Which side am I supposed to be on? Right. And but it doesn't bother me. And I think in the spirit of being a kid's movie, I think kids don't care about that as much.
I would argue that it's not a kids movie. That it is a family friendly film.
All right, fair enough.
Because I think that if you're our age and you watch this film without children around, you will find enjoyment in it. It's a fun, entertaining movie, and in a lot of ways, it's a dark comedy because there's strikingly dark themes in this, which is what the studio hated. Because, like I said, they were like, this isn't Home Alone. This is kind of weird.
Yeah, it's definitely not Home Alone. It is definitely not Home Alone, yeah.
No, but when you take a Tom and Jerry plot and you put it in live action.
Yeah, genre-wise, it would probably live in the realm of, like, Baby Stay Out, right? Which is not not something that's going to be talked about. You're not going to talk about the cinematography or, like, the smartness of that film. It is what it is. This is really smart, really well shot film, especially for a first time outing. It's just like there's some great camera work. And the set design, like Jason mentioned, like it just clicks on all cylinders. And like I hadn't seen it in years. And so I watched it in prep for the podcast, and I was like, man, it's a joy to watch. And it's not, it's not Shakespeare. It's not right. Trying to be heavy, but it delivers great laughs. It delivers a good character arc to the story, because the brothers are combative and against each other, and there's a lot of resentment. So there's the family drama, like Dad always liked you and never approved of me.
Because I have no respect for you, spending your whole life in that stupid factory. It's tragic.
You think I didn't have other things I wanted to do with my life? You think I didn't have ambitions of my own?
Come on, you love string.
I didn't love string.
Well, you could have fooled me. You and Pop were always huddled together, running some piece of something through your fingers. And it didn't matter what I did. I didn't even exist. I made him my special rack of lamb for his 70th birthday.
Oh, no.
Yes, you remember. I slaved over that meal, making sure everything was perfect. Did he say thanks, Ernie? It was delicious? No. He only noticed the string I had tied it with. He was crazy. But I still wanted his approval. I didn't leave Lars. I was cast out.
And they come together, and the melding of the cooking to the string is like symbolic of them, and it's not, like I said, it's not super deep, and a lot of the themes are very surface, but it does everything so well. And again, like some of the bits there's a bit where they set out hundreds of traps, and it's all practical. Like they set out like real mouse traps, and they're trying to get out of the kitchen and the door's locked. And it's just, one of those painted yourself in the corner situations that ends with a wave of mousetraps going on that just looks awesome and hilarious and scary at the same time. It's just, and there's a whole bit where Timon and Pumbaa or whatever get back together because they decide to get a cat. So they go to the pound, and the pound looks like a 1930s insane asylum. And the guy that voices Timon is the guy, and he's like in this hazmat suit and stuff. And they're like, we want somebody like with a bad upbringing, like a fully adult, like traumatized cat. And there's this cat that's like in a box, and he's like, we've kept him in the box ever since we gassed him the first time. And they're like, the first time? Like this cat survived euthanasia. Yeah, and it's like,
find the one you want, and I'll spay or neuter it myself.
Well, these are all kittens. We were hoping for an older cat, one with experience.
That's a switch. Most people like the cute little ones. Experience with what?
Mouse hunting.
Oh, all cats are good mouses.
Yes, but you see, we have huge rats the size of sumo wrestlers, and lots of them. So we really need a ferocious feline, preferably with a history of mental illness. I'm talking one mean pussy.
Yeah, a vicious cat. Difficult to love. Do you have any of those knocking around your cages? Funny you should ask. I had all but given up on anyone wanting him. We were about to gas him again.
Again?
Spent most of his whole life in that box, I expect.
Catzilla?
You know the guys who clean up call him that, but you can call him anything you want. I'd say he looks like a Fluffy. Ah, poor little Catzilla. You want a home, don't you? You want to get out of here. Where you're gonna have to kill for it.
You're a stupid cat, aren't you? Yes, you are. And you're ugly.
Oh, you little bastard.
We'll take him.
It's like it's like from Creep Show. It's like this is this box that they're looking at.
And again, not really a kid's thing.
Right.
But yeah, this movie is a throwback. It feels, like you said, like a Three Stooges or a Marx Brothers film.
Mm-hmm.
Like it has a lot of that patter sometimes, that back and forth. Like we were talking about the Three Stooges movie that they did in the 2000s. Mm-hmm. the reason that one was so great is because not only did they do the slapstick that everyone knows them for, but they did the wordplay that the Stooges would do. And I think that is kind of like the stuff here. It does feel like a classic golden age Hollywood movie.
Yeah. Does it have its flaws? Yeah, sure. This is one of those films that, like, if you're flipping through the channels and it was on, I would watch it wherever it was at, because it's just.
We're gonna have to stop using that saying because it really doesn't apply anymore.
Yeah. But it's just, I can't say enough good things. And Verbinski he's had a pretty decent career, because like watching this and then watching Pirates of the Caribbean, you can see that sensibility is still there, but the skill has certainly improved.
Yeah.
Because Pirates of the Caribbean was one of those films that, like, I saw it, I was like, there was zero reason for this film to be as good as it was.
Yeah.
This has defied all it should not have been.
I don't think we've ever talked about that movie. I know it's out of scope for this episode, but yeah, I remember having that same feeling when I saw that movie for the first time. And
when they're fencing on the water wheel that's rolling loose, I was like, this is just entertaining.
Yes. And the dialogue and the quirkiness and everything, the snappiness of the lines and
yeah. And of course, like everything, over time they
diluted it
it wore out its welcome. But that first Pirates of the Caribbean film is a really good, solid film that I think anybody can watch at any age. Certainly has the hallmarks that I think were honed in Mousehunt.
We got to do an episode on pirates so we can watch that movie.
I appreciate the massive amount of practical effect. I mean, I guess, like, I wouldn't put, like, Paddington in this.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
Kind of genre. Paddington's almost there. It has elements of this, but Paddington, I think, is a little more, in a weird way, more sincere.
Yeah.
I guess. Again, Paddington was a film that I saw the trailer for, and I was like, this is garbage. And then we took the kids to see it, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. Even the scene that I saw, like, in context, the scene that I saw in the preview is hilarious.
It has in a modern context, you may disagree with this, but aesthetically anyway, is a series of unfortunate events.
Mm-hmm. The Netflix series? Yeah.
It has that vibe to it, I guess, is the way I was. Smart and clever, and set design is fascinating, and
I know we're off the mark here, but, like, if you haven't seen the Netflix series of fortunate events, you're missing out. Yes, it's a kid show, but
it's got a lot in it.
It's very well done.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it is insanely entertaining, and Neil Patrick Harris is just like, he chews the scenery, and it is like, it's beautiful. It is just, it's
a superior performance to Jim Carrey's.
Yes. And they did have the benefit of it being stretched out. The Netflix series, I think, had more heart to it, as well as better performances all around. Great cameos, too. I mean, great, I guess, supporting actresses and actors, like, in each episode. Probably one of the better Netflix originals. I'd put it in the top 10 easily.
Yeah.
Watch that. Watch Mousehunt. Watch kids' movies for a while. Forget about real world. Like, sometimes that's what movies are for.
Go revisit
escapism.
Our children's television episode to get some ideas, because, brother, we need it.
Watch Author versus Alienation. My favorite Author episode is when it guest stars Nietzsche. Brain goes to the big kids library and comes out a nihilist. Hang on. I want to write that down.
Dear Mayor Hollywood, we've done it again.
All of our ideas end up as, like, the Poohniverse movies. When Winnie the Pooh went into public domain, they started making horror movies and stuff. Now they've got Popeye the Slayer Man. Which is fine, because I really hate Popeye.
Is it because of the resemblance?
It's his Kantian assertion that he is what he is, and that is all that he is. It really sticks in my craw. I guess it's more Descartesian philosophies of Popeye, just, my modern sensibilities. I'm more of a Soren Kierkegaard kind of guy. So,
anybody still listening now, we applaud you.
I'll tell you what, like when I start rambling at work, I always hear, Josh, quit making stuff up.
We got a real Voltaire over here.
That's not a real word.
Kierkegaardian.
And I'm like, suspect is not a real word.
I can assure you, felony is a real word.
What kind of Faustian bargain have I created? I'm diametrically opposed to these words. I just like to talk like I'm in Frasier.
Orthogonal. That was a word that I didn't think was real for a while. It turned out to be a real one.
That's a board game word.
That's, in fact, the context under which I learned that word.
As myself. I can't go catawampus.
Yeah.
You know?
I think that was my old word for it, too. Oh, that's funny.
And thus the hunt is over.
Yeah.
The blood is hot.
Why are you dragging Adam away? What's going on?
Well, I have to drink his blood. And then go see my dad, the mayor, and they'll plant a tracking device on me. So one of the kids from the Outsiders can shoot me.
God willing.
God willing, we all meet in Spaceballs 2, the search for more money.
If you were assassinated, Josh, Jason and I would continue the podcast without you.
I appreciate that. That's dedication.
But we would.
Is that a threat?
It would become solely dedicated to dragging you in past episodes. Like we'd listen to a clip and then talk about how stupid you were, and then.
Well, if you listen to my other podcast,
The Worst of Josh by Jason. How many subscribers are you up to now? It's like twice what we have over here, right?
4?
We're almost at 2 hands worth of.
So, Adam, why don't you give the spiel?
Sure.
We haven't had an email in yonks.
Yeah.
Well, have you even checked the email?
That's a fair point. Have you checked the email in a while?
Not in yonks.
You're going to get there. It's going to be like John Voights wrote to us.
I check every Deca yonk. The email.
That's too cattywampus for me, man. That's. If you'd like to send us an email, we may or may not ever check it. It's brickedpit@gmail.com. Otherwise, if you'd like to reach out to us, we're on social media. You can find all that information at linktree/brickpit. As always, we do appreciate those of you who keep us going by providing feedback and listening on the regular. We do this mostly for us. We're having a great time still, I think, but we certainly appreciate any time we hear from you and to let us know there's actual humans on the other side of this. So until next time, this is the Brick Pit.